It's Thursday evening, everyone, and I just got back from the gym, stuffed my face full of protein so I can get swole. Anyway, I've got my good friend Colton Gilman on the podcast. Colton has been on the podcast with me before, but it's always good to shoot the shit with you. So what's going on tonight, dude?
Not a whole lot. Sitting here in my reloading room. My girlfriend got home. I told her to keep the puppy quiet while I sat here on the phone.
Yeah.
She likes to grab squeaky toys and big old heavy bones and drop them on the hardwood floor while you're on the phone.
Yeah, shit. Is it cold up there too? Probably like we got down here. Not too bad.
Man, it was like 40 degrees today. It was really nice. I went out and shot some rifles and enjoyed the day. It was nice.
Hey, I have not seen 40 in a while. It's weird because you can go one direction or the other, and you go towards Du Bois, you'll have a 30-degree temperature change. But it's been pretty damn cold here. But I'm gonna try to go fishing on Saturday and try not to jack my knee up and float the river. So we'll see how that goes. But
see how that new knee does in a boat.
No shit, right? But yeah, for anybody that doesn't know, I've known Colton for a while. He's a big stick bow guy. But I guess if I was going to describe, Colton, he's what I would say is probably a true woodsman. And when I, say that, good with a pistol, good with a gun, good with a trad bow, good with a fly rod, good with a spinning rod, and good in the outdoors, woodsmanship all around, which, you don't find that very often today. So it's always nice, obviously, to have Colton and I backpacked some last year. And you're kind of into everything. You've done competition, pistol shooting. You've, obviously Hell and Jesus with a stick bow. You've done it all.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of USPSA pistol matches, a little bit of skill challenge, and a wee little bit of three gun. Never got into the three gun all that much, but yeah, I don't know, hyper fixate on something. I'm not normally naturally good at anything, and it really pisses me off if I'm not, halfway decent at something. So I like to start a new project and just absolutely obsess over it until I'm halfway decent. And once I'm halfway decent, I kind of lose interest in it. And I think that's what kind of kept me intrigued with a stick bow, because you just never really do get halfway decent with it. You think you're pretty good, and then you shoot over an elk or a deer at 12 yards, and yeah.
Yeah, no, you'll be good for a day or a week or so, and then you'll get the shit humbled out of you, and then you go back to square one and try to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, for sure. I always say there's nothing like carrying around a piece of equipment that constantly reminds you that you ain't shit.
Yeah. That is a fact. But you've had pretty good success. I mean, you're from West Virginia originally, or Virginia?
Yeah. I grew up in West Virginia. Moved out here when I was 26, so 9 years ago, to Montana.
Yeah, kind of a dream of yours when you were a kid, or?
Yeah, I grew up. My dad and I got a brother that's 11 years older than me, so I always heard about. I grew up in a hunting family, and my uncles, my grandpa, my dad, they all hunted, and my brother was a good deal older than me, and they went out to Colorado a couple times to elk hunt, mule deer hunt back when it was just over the counter, and I just grew up like every Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner, just anytime the family got together, it was about Colorado elk. The conversation was just about elk, the one that got away, that you remember these big antlers, and I was just kind of obsessed with it. And by the time I got like the hunting age, started bow hunting, my grandpa had died, and the family just kind of didn't do all the stuff together like they used to. So, I didn't get to go out there with my family, but I just obsessed over the idea of going out west and chasing them animals that we didn't have in West Virginia. So whenever I got my first real job and I could kind of use a little bit of money to travel, I came out here a couple times, and then it just seemed like all I did was just scrape pennies up to try to come out here once or twice a year. And I was like, man, I'm just going to move out there. If all I want to do is go out there and fish and hunt, and so I actually decided I wanted to move out here, and told my girlfriend, I was like, we got to move out in 2 weeks, because I've got to be a resident for 180 days in order to get a elk tag this fall. So the way that time came out, we had to leave in like 2 weeks, but she was game. You've met her. She's game for anything.
So she didn't complain too much. You don't find that very often.
Not at all. I was like, hey, you want to move to Montana? And she's like, fuck it. Yeah, well, I'll go.
Yeah. Well, and like the one of the reasons I like getting you on the podcast, I'm doing well, on that note, congratulations. Colton got a new job, by the way. I don't know if you wanted the whole world to know that, but Colton's moving up in the world. You're getting paid more and work less. You're fucking crushing it.
Yeah.
Is most of my I don't know, probably until 2018, I guess. The majority of my hunting was over the counter, kind of figuring out on a very low budget. And you've gotten to be really good at that. And I think the one thing that, like, when I talk to guys about this, is just daring to go, right? Like, I say daring to go, if it's not that hard to go, hunting or hiking or fishing or whatever. You just kind of have the balls to do it and then kind of learn along the way. And so those lower budget hunts, really, you're kind of within reason. You can make it happen. You may be eating tuna out of a can. You may not have the best living accommodations, but you've been able to get it done really frequently, very successful on a pretty moderate budget. I mean, kind of dive into that some on the budget and just making it happen.
Well, I grew up, we've talked about it, we didn't come from a wealthy family, and we always made, things work. We were pretty resourceful. So, I kind of never did get into the whole gear thing. So, like, if I had the money for the gas, the tag, and like a little bit of food, like, I thought I had the money for the trip. And I did. And I think a lot of people just get hung up on, I've being from West Virginia, a lot of people back there want to come out here and hunt mule deer and antelope and elk. And when I talk to them about it, they're like, all right, what do I need? And I tell them what they need. And then they come back with all this shit that they bought. And, you start doing the math, and their mule deer hunt went from $1,800 to $5,000-$6,000. And it's like, if people think that that's what they need to do the trip, then I understand, the hesitation to put one of those trips together. But like you said, it just takes a little bit of courage to just decide that you're going to do it and go out there and do it. And I've backpacked with Ozark Trail Walmart tents. I've laid there and shivered with cotton clothes on, but I was in Colorado. I was in, Wyoming, Idaho, wherever I wanted to go. You just had to make it happen. Like you said, eat tuna out of a can and pack tortillas in and all this stuff. Ain't glamorous, but you're out there and you're doing it. And you learn what's really important at the hunt. You learn that, take your 270 on a mule deer hunt. You don't have to buy a new, 6 PRC or something like that. Like, just do it. You need the fuel, you need the tags, you need some food. But you're eating at the house. Normally, you can eat cheaper on the mountain, I think, than if you're sitting around the house.
Steven and I did a video. By the way, don't go into Smith's grocery store with a video camera. That is.
I have seen a little bit of your stories there. Did they throw you all out of there?
It was heavily frowned upon. I mean, we went back in and went shopping and did a couple cell phone, but no, they did not like it. They were very clear with that. And then they were scared as shitless because Steven's not exactly a small dude to begin with, and I'm not a set of car keys, and we had just left the gym. And so, we were all pumped up and veiny. And I mean, we thought we were doing the right thing by not going to Walmart and supporting the local grocery store. And the manager was super cool when it finally kind of, calmed down a little bit, but I get it, right? I just thought, I wanted to kind of support the local grocery store. Anyhow, yeah. I was doing exactly what you just said, is I wanted to do a video and say, all right, I'm shooting for $12 a day in food, and so you kind of break that down for what you spend at home. And, when I say this, people are like, $12 a day, that seems like a lot, but I'm talking your coffee, whatever, if you drink pre-workout, whatever, right, throughout the entire day. And I was wanting to be 12 to 15 dollars a day. So you figure if it's 7-day hunt, let's say 10-day hunt, it's $150, right, for food, and staying lightweight. So yeah, the whole thing was I wanted to be at 100 calories per ounce or more. So I'm not carrying too much weight. And dude, it was easy. Like that's what I was trying to prove is it did not take shit to get a lot. I had 3,600 calories a day for $14 a day. And I was well over 100 calories an ounce. And that was in a 30-minute, like what you and I would do when you show up, when we go bear hunt, we'll just run to Smith's and grab some shit. And so people get pretty wrapped up on that too. And nothing wrong with dehydrated meals, but they're $15 a piece for a dehydrated dinner. And, that's expensive. I mean, it adds up.
It definitely does. And then you're packing around them Mylar bags and, they don't burn up. You can't burn them. And, I did, I went to Winco one time. I was going 10 days in Alaska. I did it on $38 from Winco.
It's doable. You can do
it. Is definitely doable.
You might lose some weight, but I mean, let's talk about this, right? Because you are definitely a get her done guy, right? And I'm definitely one of the guys now where I'm more of a gear geek, but kind of whatever came from one end to the other. And my advice to guys is like, hey, if you're going to buy good gear, like buy good gear and don't fucking just stop looking. Like turn the computer off. Don't look for something better. Like if you have a stove that works and is lightweight and you have a titanium pot or whatever, that will be good for well over a decade before that thing breaks. And when I'm saying that is if you get on forums and you're chasing the rabbit, you'll end up spending more money when in reality you get one stove, one pad, what you're good. Like you don't need anything else.
No, I mean, if you spend some money on some base layers, throughout the year, and then just don't go shovel snow in them. Don't wear them to the football game. Don't, take care of that stuff. Wear some Rockies that you got from Walmart or some cotton stuff or, I got some good gear now, throughout the year I've picked up and I try to take care of it. But I always say, set out your money for the necessities. And then if you have anything left over, you can start, it sounds really simple, but a lot of guys just don't do that. A lot of guys will be like, well, I need a new rifle or I need, a new bow or broadheads or a new tent. I used it was just an aluminum pot that I cut the handle off with a hacksaw and I used that thing for years.
Yeah, it works. I mean, the thing is though, is like, it's not even that expensive to get a pretty good cook set now. It's not horrible. And when I say that, like if you're just super broke, that's one thing. But if you are going to the gas station every day and dropping $14 in the morning on whatever energy drink and this and that and whatever, and or beer every night, I mean, whatever, pick it. You can get an MSR pocket rocket, or I think you have that Optimus Crux stove is what you were using for
Crux Light,
$39, right? And then, you can get a pot for $29 to $49, titanium ones, maybe closer to $50, but under $100. And, you do the math, right? If that's, you use that thing for 10 years, that's, $10 a year. You did pretty good.
Yeah. I got all my titanium stuff off Amazon. I think, Tara or something like that has a foot on it. I can't remember.
Tokes maybe.
It might. Yeah. I think it was Tokes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, I think it was like $50 or something like that. Wasn't nothing crazy. And I was at work one day and a guy told me, he's like, I was going somewhere hunting and he's like, man, I wish I had your money. And I always like to tell people, well, you'd starve to death. Until recently, I've upgraded as you do, jobs throughout your life. And now I'm in my mid 30s. Like on a budget, like that's what me and you have hit it off on in the beginning was, hunting on a budget. And that same guy drinks 2 energy drinks a day, smokes a pack of cigarettes. I mean, you stop at, like you said, you stop at a gas station with him, and it's $15-16 5 days a week when he's working.
Yep.
I don't want to sound like Gordon Ramsay or anything, but if you don't do that kind of shit, you can afford a lot of stuff in life.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where, Yeah, I try to I make sure people understand I'm in a position now where I can test all of this gear. So, so people don't have to and can get, kind of the buy once, cry once thing. And the buy once, cry once doesn't necessarily mean that you need to cry because of the price of it, right? Like there are going to be optics. Optics are going to be expensive. There's going to be things that are expensive that, as time goes on, you'll upgrade. But like I'm looking now, a fire maple stove, which has the little reactor burner, whatever, is $25. There's a Tokes for $26 for a 750 milliliter pot. So yeah, I mean, it's not that bad. Just don't buy too much shit. The other thing too is, on the packing side or whatever else is like, generally from what I found, first time guys go on a backpack hunt, they probably got 30 pounds more shit than they, than they need anyway in the pack. So
I've got a picture from my very first backpacking hunt, and I had a little digital camera, and I set up a tripod, and I just I set it up and took a picture of me with my backpack. And I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's on my Facebook. I'll have to send it to you. But it is ridiculous. I got an extra pair of boots hanging off the side of my pack. I got a tarp. I got all kinds of shit that you don't need, but that's part of it. That's the fun of it. And like going through the, Winco and looking at the calories or, the weight versus calories and trying to do it. That's a way to get you in the field whenever it's wintertime and you're sitting there chomping at the bit. You got cabin fever. It gets you on the mountain when you're not on the mountain stuff and strategizing. And, you kind of, people are cutting themselves short a little bit or peak fuel kit or whatever. I mean, spend a little bit of time and, with it. Enjoy it. Enjoy the process. Don't just, figure out what makes good clothing. Figure out what you need. We've talked about sleeping pads. Like, get a couple different sleeping pads or try different sleeping pads if you got buddies that has them or whatever. Some people need a different type of sleeping bag or pad. I'm not a skinny guy and I sleep on my side, so I need a little thicker pad. I didn't realize that till I bought a couple and couldn't walk in the mornings, a couple of mornings on the mountain.
Yeah. Well, you said it's kind of part of the process and it's fun. I mean, the thing is like, what I really just stress, and I've talked about this more and more lately as I've read a lot of stress in my life recently, is like some of the funnest times I had, I was broken shit in 08 and 09 during like what I'd call the depression and construction anyway. Gas got up to like $4.80 a gallon. I mean, it was like Jeremy and I would take sweet potatoes. This is no bullshit. I'd slice them up, make medallions out of them, chunk in a giant thing of butter, wrap it up, and put that in a Ziploc bag. And then we would backpack in, catch fish, and I just throw that aluminum foil, that potato in the fire, eat that, right? I mean, like we would, and I say like those were fun times. I didn't have a ton of money, and we certainly, like the fuel thing was probably like we had to strategize to afford to drive far, dude. Like when fuel was $4.80 a gallon, but dude, it's fun. And I mean, the thing is you just got to get out there, and whether it's shed hunting or fishing or whatever else, that's where people are like, hey, what book can I read to learn woodsmanship? And it's like, man, if you live by the woods, you should just go in the woods, like practice building a fire. Like,
I think it was Aldo Leopold said in Sand County Almanac that, after a snow, every woodlot is a novel and woodsmanship is the translator.
Yeah.
And I always like that. Like, go out there. When I first started trapping, I didn't know shit about coyotes, foxes, coons. And I'd go out and cut a track and I'd follow it backwards. Because I figured if I follow it forwards, eventually you're going to catch up with the animal and kind of make it, you're going to make it not be natural in its movement. You're going to affect the way that animal moves. But if you cut those tracks and walk backwards, then you kind of see what that animal's interested in, how it moves, its stride, and you kind of learn a little bit about it. And that's woodsmanship skills. That's how the kid flipping over rocks in the creek and shit like that. It makes you a better outdoorsman. It really does.
Yeah. I made a post about the BB gun thing. Like we talk about guiding or whatever, like, a client will come in and I'll say, after he goes back to go into bed, I'll be like, yep, he shot some blue jays with a BB gun, when he was a kid. And the thing is like, And I mean, I did some bad shit as a kid too that definitely helped hunting and woodsmanship. Meaning, when the salmon would run, we would do things. We would find a way to catch those salmon that is not legal. Right? When you're a kid, you're dumbass, right? I mean, but you learn, and then it just helps when you get older. And when I say that, like, not to pump your tires up, but when you meet a guy that's constantly resourceful and this was asked on an interview I was on the other day of like, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? Like, what do you need to be in a good hunting partner, basically? And the thing is like, if Colton and I go in and I'm grabbing firewood, Colton's going to grab the water and start cooking for the meals, or Colton's, there's a system. And if you know what you're doing, everyone is constantly, productive, and if you're the productive person and not a liability, that's the position you want to be in.
Yeah, it was very easy backpacking with you. Not keeping up with you, that wasn't easy, but it was very easy. Like we broke down and we really didn't even talk about anything. We just like had camp set up in 20 minutes. And like everything we needed was all there. And it was funny. We never like discussed gear or nothing, but like we just kept pulling shit out of our backpacks. It was the same.
Yeah. Yep.
Like,
well, and I mean, I think it's the same like hunting. You find somebody who's a skilled hunter, they probably have a lot in common, on the back end, right? How they got to where they are. And, when you, like when you came out, west, and you kind of, you're figuring shit out. I mean, you're doing it with a stick bow. So obviously, that you get extra cool points for that, because it's just more difficult with a stick. But you've been fairly successful with bear, with elk, whitetails. I mean, the whole nine. But what was the one that maybe took you the longest to kind of figure out? Like, which one of those animals kind of whooped your ass first?
Elk whooped my ass. Just the lack of opportunities. You know what I mean? Like with a deer, you can get busted 3 or 4 times. Some places 10, 12 times a week with deer, and you're like, oh, next time I'm gonna do this differently. But where I elk hunt, it's pretty challenging, and I'd get like one opportunity a year. And it took me, I kept track of 66 days of actively elk hunting to kill an elk. But I'd get 1, possibly 2 opportunities a year, and you're like, oh shit, like next time I'm gonna do this. And then you hunt 10 more days and you just don't get another opportunity. So elk was probably the hardest one, other than, coyotes was probably my toughest, learning to coyote hunt. Those things were my arch nemesis for a long time.
What do you think, like, how long, well, I mean, putting an elk on the ground, how many seasons did it take you?
So 2 hunts to Colorado when I lived in West Virginia, and then I think it was 2 or 3 years in Montana before I killed one.
Yeah. How much
did
that fuck with you mentally? Was that like really starting to drive you crazy?
No. I don't know, it gets frustrating, but I just knew it was kind of part of the process. And I was trying to tell people not to get frustrated packing a stick around in the woods, because there's going to be a day. There was a guy that came out from, I think it was Iowa, and he hunted with a buddy that had a compound, and his buddy killed one on like day 3, 2 years in a row. And I told him, I was like, are you getting any opportunities? He's like, yeah, I'm getting close, but not, and I said, well, if you hunt 9 days this year, 9 days next year, you've got 18 days of experience hunting elk hunting, and your buddy has 6. Like, there's going to be a time where it's going to switch to where you might not have the animals on the wall, but you've got more experience, than somebody with an easier weapon. And so I don't know. I've kind of learned to trust the process and really put your time in, because it takes a lot of time to figure out a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, it can, for sure. I mean, I got lucky on the stick bow side with elk because I had hunted elk so much with the compound, and so that saved me. Because I ended up killing an elk my first year, but kind of like what you said. I mean, I would have probably killed one the first day with the compound, maybe day two, where it took multiple, days. And really for me, and through all of this and I'm talking too much because I got Colton as a guest, but when I started with a stick bow, there was a ton of guys that were, you're using technology as a crutch. You suck as a hunter. You'll never carry a stick bow. The majority of that was true. And I definitely learned that real fast of like, fuck, I have to learn how to hunt now because I can't drop a bomb. And when I say a bomb, even 40 plus, right? I'm not talking like 100-yard bomb, like, 40 with a stick's pretty damn far. So like, I had to actually kind of, learn to like close that 40 and in distance. And that was the thing that kind of, for me was just getting closer than 40. And I ended up shooting the elk at like, I don't know, 12 yards or whatever. But figuring that out was kind of the eye opener for me to actually truly become a hunter where you can get in close. And that's what you've been doing the whole time.
Yeah, I kind of had that with turkey. I shotgun hunted for turkeys for a long time before I picked up a stick bow and went after turkey. So the experience that I had with shotgun definitely shortened the learning curve for with a stick bow. But yeah, it's kind of rough starting on a new species with a stick bow.
Yeah, I mean, you figure it out, though. Like you said, you trust the process. You get it figured out. I mean, I guess with guys looking at picking up a stick bow, there'll be a bunch of guys listening that obviously are just going to listen because you're on, but guys that are listening, that are shooting a compound have been thinking about this stick bow. I mean, what would your, kind of your primary advice be with picking one up more than what you've already said?
My advice would be don't make it harder on yourself than you need to. I know I did it too. Thought I was a big hard ass purist when I first started trying to shoot a turkey, and I was like, I'm gonna do it in plaid without a blind, no decoys, and you're already making it very difficult by using a stick bow. Same with deer. I know people that started shooting a stick bow and they're like, I'm gonna do it off the ground, with my plaid shirt on, and it's like, stay in your tree, bait if it's legal. Like, don't make it harder on yourself, because the aspect of just getting that shot off with a stick bow is hard enough. Like, don't jump into making it absolutely as hard as possible on yourself because you're gonna muff up some shots. You gotta work out some shot jitters, and I call it game panic. So give yourself a lot of opportunities. If you got to travel, I was talking to a buddy the other day that lives in a state where you got to pick a weapon, and the deer species blacktail that they get to hunt, you get an opportunity or two a year. And we was talking about, traveling to different states and getting doe tags, like Georgia or someplace or Alabama, where you can get, a bunch of doe tags and go out and, put some arrows through animals. Yeah. I know you had the opportunity to do that down in some places, Oklahoma and Texas and stuff. And man, that type of experience is invaluable.
No, it helps. I mean, obviously with Texas, you get 5 tags to begin with, but Oklahoma, I had, depredation tags and then shooting hogs and shit. And I mean, I was lucky with the stick because I had a lot on my side. I mean, I had coaches like Tom Klum and guys helping me, and then I had time, right? I could hunt my ass off, right? I don't fucking hunt more. I can't. So I mean, that's the thing that I had was I had time, right? And so, but the thing is when you pick up the stick, don't make it harder than it is. I would agree with that 100%. And then the other thing too is like, get the fucking arrow and bow set up and stop fucking with it, right? Like, don't panic about 17.2% FO. I mean, just get the thing lethal and then just shoot that setup and get used to that setup to where it's an extension of your body, and do that. Like, just get that specific bow that you like and shoot the shit out of it, to where it's literally like an extension of your body. And that helps. And I'm psychotic with that. And that was a huge help for me with shooting. I made some mistakes in and out. Like, you're more of an instinctive guy. And have been very successful with that. But I guess, having said that, like, I shot 3 under and kind of gap shot. Like, I use my point as an aiming device. What's your suggestions on that?
I like instinctive shooting. I'm biased on that, but I feel like it's a better It's a better system for hunting, but it takes a long time. Me and Bob Smith was talking about that. I mean, it was probably 6 years before I really felt 100% confident in shooting in front of people. And that's another thing. If the anxiety you feel around shooting other people is nothing compared to whenever that bull elk steps out, or that bear or deer. So like, put yourself into that situation on purpose. Like, go to winter leagues, go shooting with other people. And, you know, I know a lot of people that has problems with the anxiety of shooting at an animal, and, you know, they really should work on that in the off season by, you know, go to winter league and be the last person to shoot and have, you know, 25 people watch you shoot. You know, that's the closest you can get to practicing the anxiety of shooting at an animal. But another thing, get a setup. Don't go crazy with, you know, the paper tuning and getting that perfect setup, like you said, the high FOC, and don't fall in love with your arrows. Don't get a setup to where you've got $300 invested in your arrows and you don't want to shoot at that squirrel, or you don't want to go stump shooting or shoot at that rabbit. You know, just sling arrows.
Man, I that's good advice. And I you know, I killed a ton of shit with some cheap ass arrows with that stick bow. And when I say that, like, I wouldn't buy the ones that are cheap that break easy, buy the ones that are cheap that don't break easy. But I mean,
Yeah.
I agree. Like, you can, I don't know, I shot, the hell were those called? The, freak from, Black Eagle. What the hell were those things called? Anyway.
Instinct?
No, I shot the wooden looking ones, the 246s. Anyway, moral of the story is get a durable ass arrow and listen to Colton, and wing fucking arrows. Like, stump shoot. I mean, I agree. Like, just shoot. And you get some of these arrows can be $280, $290 a dozen. Like, probably not going to be flinging an arrow at a squirrel if it's a, $26 arrow. So I agree with you 100% on that.
I'd say for the first 6-7 years that I hunted with a stick bow, I went through 2 to 3 dozen arrows a year. And when you look at Bob Smith, like, he kills giant whitetail, he kills bears, he's killed elk, like, he shoots gold tip warriors. Like, that's his favorite shaft. He's like, they'll outshoot your ability to shoot them, and I don't know what they are, $60 a dozen.
Yeah, they're pretty
nice.
cheap.
The gold tip blends, the hunters, the blends, and they were, $40 a dozen when I started, and then they got up to, $60-$70 a dozen. But yeah, don't think you're going to be able to tell the difference in straightness of an arrow, a carbon arrow.
Yeah, not for a while. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you on forever. We've been on for 30 minutes. So one of the things we were talking about the other day that I kind of wanted to touch on, and that it's gotten brought up to me, quite a bit lately with the, Colorado states basically buckling down and doing like draw only, for elk, no more over the counter, tags, things like that. A guy messaged me earlier today on a comment I had made, about he could see no evidence that, the harvest rate has gone up from over hunting. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you're not understanding the problem. Like, it's not a matter of like necessarily the elk population numbers going down from killing them. It's fucking impossible to kill them because of the pressure. And I think when you look at the good old days, and I'm going to shut the fuck up here so you can kind of take over when you were talking about, like, the other day on the phone of from the 90s to 2000s, 2010s, when you look at the good old days when they were really good, that's what you're remembering. But if you just started hunting, your good old days are like maybe seeing an elk in a 10-day hunt. So for me, and I get bashed about this, I'm all for limiting the OTC elk, at least for a while until the elk are not all on private land. And, but either way, dive into that.
I couldn't agree more with you about there's a point where the success rate doesn't go up because the hunt quality is deteriorated so much that it's hard to even get on an elk. But some of the stuff that we talked about with the companies that make the backpacking stuff more accessible to your average person, it kind of deteriorated the barrier to entry to the backpack elk hunter. It was you had to be real serious about it whenever I first started. And even more 20 years before that, I got a late start at it. And then you talk to people like Rosie Roseland, and I got to hang out with Paul Bruner 2 weeks ago. Like, you start talking to him, and I mean, it was leather straps and canvas bags and heavy shit, and you just had the mountain to yourself. So, you know, a lot of people want to do this stuff. It's really cool. You see it on Instagram. You're like, I want to do that. And then there's a line in the sand that they're willing to cross. You know, there's X amount of effort they're willing to do. And as this, you know, Onyx, backpacking, ultralight backpacking companies, Peak Fuel and Backpackers Pantry and all that stuff, that's all great stuff, but it just kind of pushes that line a little bit farther. So a lot more people are willing to put in that amount of effort to go out there. So it's just a lot more people. It's accessible to a lot more people, and it's not a bad thing until it affects the hunt quality. And, you know, there's all kinds of theories and methods to combat that. You know, the mostly is the tag availability, you know, making it a draw instead of over the counter anymore. Cause I haven't hunted Colorado in 5 or 6 years, but I hear a lot of people talk about Colorado and they're just like, I can't get away from people. And that's kind of how it is up here anymore. I had my own little honey hole for a couple of years, but now, you know, some guy paid an outfitter to pack him in with horses where we would walk in. And, you know, they weren't willing to walk in, but they were willing to get back in there on horses. And they found the spot with Onyx. I talked to them last year. So it's just the barrier to entry is deteriorating a little bit. And it's just more people are getting out there and doing it. And what's the answer? I don't really know. I mean, I'm a bit biased. I would say, you know, make areas to where, you know, limit technology. But then that's an argument in itself. And the out-of-state hunters, what a lot of people don't understand is me as a resident, I pay, it's like $110 for a deer tag, a bear tag, a turkey tag, fishing license, bird, elk, and deer. So I'm not paying for shit as a resident. The out-of-state people that are paying $1,200 to come here and hunt an elk, you know, that's where the conservation is coming from. So I don't hate on out-of-state people. You know, a lot of people make it, you know, where an out-of-state hunter can't come here. Well, that's not the, you know, who's going to pay for the conservation? You know, who's going to put the fuel in the game warden's vehicle to come check licenses and make sure everyone's, you know, not taking advantage of the resources and stuff. So I don't really know. I mean, my bias, the answer would be to, you know, put a cap on equipment in some areas and stuff, but I don't know. That's a hard thing to get too many people behind you on that.
Well, Randy Cooling and I were talking about this the other day, and the reason why the tag or the OTC tag number it's easier because it's there's a monetary problem, and I don't mean towards conservation, but I mean just towards companies. If you outlawed, let's say hypothetically, rangefinders, or you outlawed whatever, you know, that obviously it's going to put companies out of business or whatever else. But when you say limit technology, there's kind of, and you're right, this is a big bag of snakes. I personally, like, I don't think rangefinders are a problem. I don't think compounds are really that big of a problem. I think Onyx, Spartan Forge, and I use it, right? Google Earth, right? GPSs, those are a problem.
You're silly if you don't, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a problem, right? And so, you know, if you limit it, let's say, to where you had a bunch of traditional archery only, you know, units, I don't have any issue with that. And I've had guys, so you'd go pick up a stick bow again? I'm like, maybe, you know, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I mean, we're in fucking la la land here. We're, you know, making dreams happen, right? We're just talking. But if you made, let's say you picked out of, let's say there's 20 units in Colorado that were going to shut down OTC, and you made those unlimited access for stick bow guys, I would have zero issue with that. The number would be really low. I mean, that's an option. It's never going to happen, but it's an option. But the easiest, quickest fix right now would be every state be run to where they take very good care of their residents. They limit the outer access from, you know, out-of-state hunters, but the in-state people would have to take over the bump. They'd have to pay the tollman to make that happen by paying more for their tags to compensate the loss or some of the loss in revenue. And then you'd have all the residents bitching about that. There's not all. There'd be a lot of residents bitching about the price, but you can't have everything, right? You can't shut all out-of-state hunters out and then not expect a price increase, because out-of-state tags, it's expensive, right? And so there's no easy answer, and there's only fighting when you start talking about it with a lot of people. They just get pissed. I mean, there's some, you can't even fucking have this conversation. Some hunting camps, people get so pissed.
Yeah, it's hard to have this conversation, but there's states that's already implemented these rules. I mean, Colorado's no scope on your muzzleloader. You know, and you look at some of these, you know, inline muzzleloaders that shoot smokeless powder, and they're capable of shooting 500-600 yards. You know, that would be a bad thing in Colorado's mule deer. You know, the early season or the elk hunt during the rut, you know, stuff like that. A muzzleloader that can shoot 600 yards. You know, there's a lot of states like Idaho. It's a exposed ignition system, no inlines, lead bullet that has to contact the lands and grooves, so no sabots, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, it's hard to. I know they've been doing this in I think, was it Arizona, that had a traditional archery in the area that was this hunt, that was this year.
I don't know.
I can't remember. I know Oregon has some units, and it's really good. They've been using it like a shot out unit. Say a unit gains in popularity and kind of gets used and abused for a couple of years, and the age class is kind of shot out. Well, implement a traditional season for 5, 6, 8 years or whatever, and get that population back up. You know, and then you'll have 3-4 years to hunt some nice stuff before, you know, everybody else comes in there and does it. It's, and like you said, it's kind of a bag of snakes, because I'm biased in that, because I would benefit hugely from that, and all the people that I hunt with would benefit hugely from that. But I try to stay out of that conversation a whole lot. You know, even within the traditional community, it turns into a kind of a screaming match sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it does. And obviously me going back and forth shooting a compound and, you know, stick bow or whatever, I definitely get, you know, at times, you know, some hatred or whatever from shooting a compound or back and forth or whatever. I mean, but I also think it probably gives me a unique perspective at times on things, meaning there was a lot of people when this was brought up before, oh, you'd have a ton of people picking up a stick bow that would be wounding animals. No, that's not, I don't think that's going to happen. It takes a commitment to pick up the stick bow. It takes practice, and the chances of them actually going into a unit that is very difficult to get on elk and closing the distance enough to hit the fucking thing is not great, right? I don't think there's going to be more elk wounded than comparing compound guys winging arrows at distances they shouldn't be shooting. So that's kind of a moot point to me, and I get yelled at by both fucking crowds, so I might as well just piss everyone off. But like, okay, you're telling me that a stick bow guy that's new is going to have a better chance at wounding an animal compared to a compound guy that's winging an arrow out at 60, 70, 80, 90 yards. You know, I don't buy it. And I can say that with a lot of confidence, you know, kind of diving in both. And the other thing too is there's not going to be that many people that would even want to pick up the stick bow to hunt that unit. It's not that sexy of a, you know, hey, go pick up a hickory stick and you got to get sub 20 yards. And oh, by the way, you got to practice 10 times harder than with a compound, you know, to get remotely.
And it's your
close.
one tag.
Yeah.
It's your one tag to shoot for that state. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you think I'm out to lunch on that? Or do you, I mean, what do you think?
No, I agree. I mean, I'm biased. I'm a stick bow guy. All my buddies are stick bow guys, but you know, I know more people with a compound that win, but I just know more people with a compound that shoot stick bows. But you know, it's kind of like the long range rifle stuff. You hear it out here a lot. The people that, and I'm a rifle guy, I'm a reloader. I was shooting rifles today. Like, you know, I'm an avid shooter, and shooting at animals. I mean, 400 yards is a long damn way. It's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect. You know, I'm sure you're familiar with that. Some people don't know enough to know that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So like these people that go out and buy the Christensen arms, you know, Ridgeline with a, you know, whatever 20 power vortex scope and then think they're going to shoot at a bear at 600 yards. And I hear it all the time, like, oh yeah, we shot at 3 this year. I said, we didn't miss the whole fucking bear, you know, and you get that too with the compounds. You get that a lot with a shotgun turkey hunter. You don't miss a whole fucking turkey with a shotgun.
No, not very often.
That's another bag of snakes too, to get into that debate. I've since solely hunting turkeys with a shotgun, I've pulled a lot of shot out of the chest that I thought that I would have just thought was my own if I was hunting them with a shotgun. But yeah, getting people interested in picking up a stick bow and then taking shots at 15, 20 yards, you know, and really ingraining that into the process of becoming a stick bow hunter. You know, you said you struggled with it, like thinking that, well, I need to learn how to shoot 40 yards away because you were nervous about getting close to these animals. But, you know, kind of getting that ingrained into a new stick bow guy, that's part of it. Like that's why we're doing this, is to get that 15, 20 yards from the animal, sometimes 5, 6 yards from the animal. I think results in a lot less wounding rates than what a lot of people like to say. I used to work with a guy that called my bow a fester stick. It's like he was out there sticking arrows and everything, and it's like, well, you know, a lot of the stick bow guys I have really, really low wounding rates because we're taking those shots really close.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is like you get into this debate. This is one of those things like you know, when you want to piss off like your girlfriend or your wife, so you go talk to somebody and strike a conversation, then walk off so they're stuck talking to them. This is the kind of, you get a bunch of compound and stick bow guys together and start this debate and just leave and walk away and watch them fight. Because I mean, you will. This is worse than politics and religion. The amount of shit talked about this specific subject of who wounds more, stick bow guys or compound guys. And it gets like violent, man. I mean, it's some of the horrible shit people say back and forth, and you know, and leaving rifle out of it, right? Like the compound guys winging arrows at 80 yards, and the stick bow guys that can't shoot for shit, man. It gets wild.
Yeah, I've seen compound guys and stick bow guys that have no business shooting at animals buy the tag every year.
Yeah, yeah.
There's going to be wounding, you know. There's going to be wounding, and that's a shit part of it. If you do your best to try it, and sometimes it's not even your fault. Don't matter what you're shooting at it. You know, I've wounded animals that I've hit them on the opposite side that I was shooting at when my string dropped. You know, I'm sure you've been there. Animals swing and duck and spin and.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I've wounded some shit. I mean, it just happens. There's not you know, I've been really lucky, and that number's been pretty damn low. But I've definitely, you know, wounded some animals, both, you know, compound and stick bow. But I think that, you know, kind of getting a little bit back on, you know, track when it comes to the, you know, tag allocation, limiting technology. We can take like game cameras. I mean, I was happy they outlawed game cameras in a couple of states, because Arizona specifically, you can't tell me that having 17 game cameras at one watering hole wasn't affecting the patterns of the deer. Like it wasn't like it's got to make them nocturnal. Like you get 17 dudes checking game cameras. Hell yeah, that's good. That spot's fucked, right? I mean, and you can't tell me it wouldn't have made it better by getting rid of game cameras. And I don't mind using game cameras, but you know, within reason, right? Or only on private land. And it's not like it's unfair because everybody's on the same playing field, or should be.
Yeah, I agree. And the cell cameras, I don't see them being legal in 5 years in a lot of states, because these states that have rules with no two-way communication, a cell cam is two-way communication. I'm not allowed to be sitting in a tree stand with a river bottom with you and see a buck heading your way and text you, hey, deer's coming your way. You know, I'm not allowed to be sitting on a water hole and a mule deer come in, you know, hypothetically here, you know, a mule deer come in, I don't have a mule deer tag, and text you, and you hike up in there and kill it. And that's exactly what cell cameras are doing. You know, you hear of people like have leases in multiple states and just have, you know, automatic feeders, or somebody put out the feeder, and whenever a big buck starts showing up, they, you know, take a few days off work, go down there and kill him. That ain't hunting. That ain't nothing that resembles hunting. And I don't know, they just think they really figured it out. And it's just, And that's some of the technology that needs to be looked at, because it's affecting, I don't know if herd size, but age class, obviously. We've hunted bears over baits, and you just feel kind of, I don't know, it takes away from it. They're like, well, I'm not going to go in there till 4:00 because nothing's been coming in till 5:30. And it's like, that just takes away from it. But yeah, I think that the trail camera thing, I think it's going to be looked at pretty hard. And if not, I'm kind of disappointed in a lot of fish and game departments if it doesn't, because that's two-way communication. That's no way around it.
Yeah, well, and I think like they should at the very least outlaw them on public land. I don't like private. I don't. It's not as big of a deal, and this is another ball of snakes. But there's a reason that and I'm all for public land. I'm just saying, like, you go to somebody who owns a bunch of private land or whatever, and you generally he's going to have bigger animals and a better age class and everything else. He has to take, especially if it's an outfitter, he has to take care of his land, and he has to have those numbers. And, he's not going to be abusing. Of course, he's going to use it to know when the game is coming in. But like the private land thing doesn't bug me as much. It's the public land, because the private land, the guy's going to control his own numbers of cameras and how much something's, going in and out when you're checking them, where the public land is where it gets a little more sticky.
Yeah, until you get to the private land that you're talking about is private land that is leased by an out-of-stater that can just come in and cherry pick the weekend he wants to hunt from the information that he's getting from these cameras.
No, every situation. That's a solid point. I mean, I fucking don't really think about that. But I mean, you think about my fat ass is, laying in, whatever, say Wyoming, and I'm watching my game camera in some other fucking state, and then a monster comes in and I load up the truck and leave. I didn't really think of that, I guess. But yeah, that's a valid point.
And that's taken away, opportunities, because if you only have to hunt 3 days in each state and you got the cash to lease 6-7 states, then you're taking away opportunity. And if you're leasing these properties, that's you're leasing them, you're locking them down to one person hunting this property, where, I've told landowners out here, like, don't stop other people from hunting just because you give me permission to hunt. If you know them, or if they've asked permission in the past, or you want to give them hunting permission, like, I don't like the idea of me hunting affecting anybody else's ability to go hunting. So I don't know. So yeah, I think that, yeah, the lease stuff. And that's the problem, is the problems that affect us in Montana, or you in Wyoming, or your lease in Oklahoma, doesn't affect Pennsylvania in the same way. So we get online and we argue, and these people are bashing each other. And one's from fucking Denver and one's from, PA. And it's like, your problems aren't a problem out here, and our problems ain't a problem there. So we need to start looking at stuff more in like localized areas. Like there might be an issue in Arizona with water holes, because it's a arid area that only has 6 watering holes in that area that animals can utilize, and there's 15 trail cameras on it. Well, we can look at the trail camera issue there, but in West Virginia, a guy has a trail camera out. It's people need to kind of think about the area that they're arguing about online. I mean, you see that all the time, and it muddles the argument or the conversation to where it just becomes just non-productive anymore.
Yeah, and there's no right answer, right, with any of this. But I mean, that is a valid point that you brought up a minute ago that I wasn't really thinking about. And I try to be realistic to the local. I guess what my perspective was like for local outfitters, for in-state local guys that are having business, that are also cattle ranchers that, are just making a living. That's where I wouldn't really want to take anything away. I wouldn't want them to be penalized for doing the right thing. That's where I would probably have a little bit of, hiccup with this or whatever, is like, I don't want to penalize a guy that's been a cattle rancher, generational, that outfits on the side, during season, that uses game cameras, when, what I mean? And because whoever, Pickett, Jimmy John, fucking Lutod, leased out 90,000 acres and he'll drive out. And I don't have any problem with Jimmy John, but I mean, when you have it does ended up making it a rich man's sport to a certain degree, and also, like you said, it kind of takes away. And I'm all about shooting big shit, and it's fun. We'll look at them on a game camera, but I've never really been a game camera guy though, so I'm probably not the right guy to even be talking about this.
Yeah, and I'm biased about it too because I'm not a game camera guy, and yeah, and I just feel like the animal should go to the person that knows the most and put the most effort into it. You know, technology muddles that, and you can't. There's a lot of people that just don't have the time. But you know, going to ruffle some feathers here. If you ain't got the time, if you ain't set out the time in your life to do it, then the person that did should have an upper hand, not the person that has enough money. You know, has the most money.
Yeah, and I mean, I think and you're right. You'll probably piss some people off, but man, I don't want to get too much hate mail over this shit. But I think that
you're in a bad situation.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. It's got to be talked about. So when you look at somebody that, I don't know, whatever, Pickett, right, makes it to the Olympics, train their entire life to make it to the Olympics, and you know, whether that be God-given ability or his parents were rich or whatever else, I mean, for you to make it to the Olympics, you're pretty damn good, whether your parents were rich or not. Now, was there 100 other women or men or women that could have made it if their parents had money? You know, probably life's not fair, but you know, when you're looking at hunting, kind of the beauty of that is anyone can do it, and the most dedicated is going to be better at it. And when I say that, within reason, right? You can be on a very poor budget, and I mean, there's shit happens, right? But I mean, we talked about it before, like if you take 10, 18-year-old kids as of today, and 4 of those kids were hanging out with you and I, and the other 6 were just, whatever, right? They're doing whatever it is 18-year-olds do, and they've got whatever father, mother, friends, whatever. Those 4 are probably going to have a much larger advantage over the other 6 by being successful and figuring it out. Should they be penalized for that by working harder and having, you know, being under the wing of the right person or whatever else? You know, you kind of get into where it's like, you know, the whole participation trophy thing, right? Hard work should be rewarded, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just don't take the hunt out of hunting. Like, just keep, you know, make it to where it's still hunting. You know, sometimes it's not really hunting anymore. But so, if you don't mind, I've been really trying to think of an analogy for like the technology involved in hunting and how, you know, you mind if I do this? If I say this?
Crush it, dude. Go ahead. Yeah, the world's your oyster. Go ahead.
I was trying to think about it. Like, say you're in a golfing community. You know, every meal around the dinner table was about golf. You got golfing trophies on your wall from where your uncle and your brother goes out to this golfing tournament in Colorado. Well, you know, you can't wait till you can get up there and do that. Well, they come out with a club that swings itself. Every shot is 40 yards farther than you could ever swing, 60 yards farther than you could ever swing, never miss the fairway, or very rarely miss the fairway. You really got to do something wrong. And all of a sudden, you get an uptick in golf. And you're like, oh, man, you know, hard to get a tee time anymore. When all of a sudden you call to try to get a tee time or try to get into that golfing tournament in Colorado, and now there's no openings. And they're like, well, there's a 4-year wait, preference points. Well, every 4 years now you can go to this golfing tournament. Well, you wait 4 years and you go to that golfing tournament. You're like, man, this was so much fun. And then 4 years later, you're like, can I get in this golfing tournament? 8-year wait now, point creep. So then all of a sudden you've got a kid that's coming up and you're like, I really want him to go golfing. Well, now your local club, you can only get in one every 4 years. You know, there's kids that can only go hunting once every 5 years in some areas. And now you're not going to keep that kid involved if he can only go out elk hunting on your ranch in Montana once every 4 years. You know, and I spend a lot of time up in the breaks and stuff like that. And there's areas where, you know, people only get an elk tag on their own property. I don't know if their own property, but their own area. I don't know what the landowner tag situation is. But, it's going to be really hard to keep kids involved if they can only go hunting. You know, they turn 14 years old and they get to go hunting. Well, now they don't get to go hunting again until they're 19. And then they don't get to go hunting again until, you know, until they're 24. Like, we're going to lose the future generations of hunters in certain areas if there's not an opportunity to go hunting every year. So whatever it needs to be to tackle this problem, I mean, it's going to ruffle feathers on either side of the fence, but it is a problem.
Yeah, you know, it
is a shit way of explaining that, but
no, I mean, right when you started, I'm like, I know where you're going with this one. I mean, it made sense. The thing, you know, where when people listen to this, you know, you kind of get stuck in your own echo chamber. And I'm not saying I'm not stuck in my own little bubble and Colton's in his own bubble, but, you know, people, I look at it like whitetail hunting, for example. Can you and I go anywhere back east and hunt whitetail in Kansas, Nebraska? Well, Nebraska's not a good option, but Kansas, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Mississippi, you know, Arkansas, Alabama. Can you and I go down there and hunt freely?
I think I've got points in Iowa. It's 5 years for certain areas, 3 years in other areas.
And there's not an overwhelming, Kansas is a little different. There's not an overwhelming amount of public land.
Yeah.
You know, and so like, you know, and I've brought this up to whitetail guys that have got pissed at me about saying it. And I'm like, well, hey, I just want to go hunt wherever. Well, it's private land out here. Yeah, I know. That's why it's hard to go hunt it. I mean, I got lucky enough. I got friends in Texas and Oklahoma, but like, I can't just stroll down to Alabama or Iowa and go hunting, right? It not easily.
Yeah.
And think about though, if they ended up making all that land, a ton of that land of the farmers and everything else public, it'd be a free for all. It'd be a shit show. And I'm not making sense of this, but meaning we've got a lot of good things going out west. It's just a lot of them have been too good for too long, and there's a sacrifice somewhere. Something has to change.
And we've talked about, you know, as hunters, we need to be courteous of each other, and we need to know, you know, be courteous isn't just trailhead courteous or trailhead courtesy, but like know your own abilities and don't, you know, we've talked about, you know, you hike 3 miles in and there's one guy that ruins the entire drainage. And it's like, that's as frustrating as that is. Like me and my girlfriend, Carrie, we parked at a trailhead one time and we're getting everything ready and a car come in and parked in front of us. And these younger kids got out and just started like throwing all their shit on as fast as they could and took off running up over the hill. We're like, what the fuck are they doing? And we ended up catching up on them on the trail. And I whistled for them to come back to me. And they turned back and just kind of like threw their hand like at me, like fuck off. And I whistled again and kind of was walking at them, kind of caught up to them. I was like, what are y'all doing? And they're like, oh, we're elk hunting. And I was like, well, we're deer hunting, so quit running ahead of us and scaring elk and deer out. Like, let's ease up this mountain, and if there's an elk, you can shoot it. If there's a deer, we'll shoot it. Like, just have these conversations and try not to fuck up each other's. You know, they talk about on public land, there's so many people, but you and me both know places that are outfitted that run way more people through them throughout the season than some of the public places that we hunt. But they're courteous about it. They're okay. The wind isn't right for this area. Don't go in and hunt it. You know, ease in, ease out. Don't blow out that entire area. So if we could just be courteous in these public places, we could fit a few more people in there without it turning shitty. Not all public property is bad.
Yeah,
just some people in the public is bad.
Yeah, and you can make it bad quick is the problem if you know, and some of that's just some of it's lack of knowledge. Like guys will go in and blow an area out because they just don't know what they're doing, and other times, you know, Arizona's probably the worst. It's Mortal Kombat hunting in Arizona. I don't think I'll ever hunt it again, or at least not for a while, because there's nothing like, you know, seeing a 180 buck at 6 o'clock in the afternoon and going on a glassing point to find it the next day, and there's 9 other dudes sitting beside you looking for the same deer, and You're jumping your truck to get to the glassing spot before anyone else. It's crazy as shit. And I mean, there's good spots in Arizona for sure. But, generally the etiquette, right? Like I've run into, Justin Wolski's a good example. I ran into him on a backpack hunt, and the fact he made it because he was kind of fat was amazing. And, he made it back there, and, I talked to him and his buddy, and I was just like, look, I will help you get a deer and get the fuck out of here. I mean, that was my exact words. And they were like, what? And I'm like, look, I'm looking for a couple specific deer. You're probably not going to find these deer before me because I've been back here a lot, and I'm from out west. What are you looking for? That's what I'm looking for. I'm like, let's find you a deer. Let's get you that deer, and let's get you out of my hair. Sound good? And they're like, yeah, sounds good. I'm like, okay. Yeah. And I mean, it's blunt, but it's like, I don't want to be fighting over deer and chasing it. It's like, hey, you want to hunt over here? I'll hunt over there. And I mean, there's nothing worse. And I get it, right? But I run into somebody. I'm like, hey, let me know where you're hunting. And, I'll try to stay out of your way. Well, we're hunting everywhere. It's like, look, dude, wrong fucking guy. Because I can hunt out everywhere a lot faster than you. Like, I'm trying to be nice, right? You don't own everywhere. Like, let's figure this out. And it's public land. And so there's etiquette to that. And, if you're nice, a lot of times you'll strike up friends and have a mutual, or I don't know, co-symbiotic's not the right word, but a mutual, beneficial relationship in years future, or in future years, if you treat people with kindness when you're back there rather than fighting over it. So
exactly. I make it a point every time I see somebody, that the hunt's kind of over, like, let's go talk to them. Let's go, figure out what they're doing, tell them what you're planning on doing, and try to figure out a way to not step on each other's toes. Because if you're both hunting the same elk or the same drainage or whatever, you're both just fucking yourselves. So if you can kind of, come to an agreement of where you guys are going to go instead of each other's hairs, then both parties can have a good hunt. Yeah, we run into that all the time out here. And I've hunted with people. It's weird. I'm like, hey, let's go talk to those guys. Oh, no, let's try to get, and it's like, that's not how you handle this situation. You want to go talk to them. And like you said, get that. I ran into a guy up by Butte this year. I was hunting with Michael Arnett, and he come down, and I kind of waved him down and was talking to him and offered him a drink. And he ended up dropping his pins on water holes because he wasn't going to get to come up there and hunt for the next week. And it was good. I still know that, I still got this guy's contact information.
Yeah.
So you never know when you're going to find a hunting buddy too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the thing. And when you, obviously, like the limiting numbers and everything else we're talking about, obviously we're deviating from that subject, but that when I say like the etiquette or whatever, there are people that I have run into that just are dicks, right? They're just, they don't care, right? I mean, they don't care if you're back there. They'll try to cut you off. It's public land. I can do what I want. And it's like, yeah, it is. But like when you're back in the city, it's public as well. And
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, would you act this way in a Walmart parking lot? Would you act, you know what I mean? Like, again, there's
that's
etiquette.
A good way to think of it. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, again, too, like when I say, it's public land back, but like when you hold the door open for people, I mean, you should be holding the door open for people. And if, somebody's weaker or somebody's having trouble getting up the steps, you help them up. You got somebody that, you meet, let's say, I don't know, at the archery range when you're shooting and they suck and they need help, you help them. I mean, that same kind of etiquette should be shown in the field to be good stewards and help, just be a better person. And I feel that I have done that right. There's a lot of things I've done wrong. I've always tried to help guys, and I may not say what they want to hear, when they're like, oh yeah, I came back for high country mule deer and, I'm glassing something 2 miles away, and they're like, you're going to go after that? I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm going to go on that stock. Man, is their deer closer? It's like, dude, you should probably just go back to the lower ground. You're not made for back here, right? Like this may not be your cup of tea. And then there's other times where I'm like, yeah, man, you pitched your tent fucked up. That thing's going to blow down. Let me show you how to pitch it. I mean, again, being a good human.
Yeah. Just, if someone wants to be an asshole, I've been pretty fortunate. I don't know. I try not to give people too much of an opportunity to be an asshole. Like, I just kind of kill them with kindness. when I run into them up on the trailheads, like, hey, if you need help packing a bull out, here's my number, and get their number. You get their number. So if there's an issue with them, I did have a solar panel stolen one time. I had to set out my camp, and I was coming back, and I noticed that there was different size Kinetrek boot tracks on the trail, and I was like, what the fuck? And the guy had picked up my solar panel with my battery on it. And it's like, who the fuck steals, something like that 4 miles in? And I found their camp, and I went and visited it twice trying to run into them, and I never could run into them. But yeah, if you get their numbers and, shit, as much solo elk hunting as you've done, having someone to help you pack out a bull is pretty handy too.
Yeah. No. And I mean, I've definitely helped more people than I like to remember pack out, elk, but man, you just hope when you do that someone's there when you need it yourself, right? Like the favors returned.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just that you could go back and hunt that carcass for a bear, or they obviously know where the elk are. They found the herd or whatever, so you can get some information. It's not always selfless to go up and help somebody.
Yeah. Well, and it again, it's just being a good, human, and I think that as we're diving off the deep end and all kinds of stuff, when you when you're looking, like guys say, like, hey, how do I'm in Florida, and I just want to go out west and hunt. What do I need to do? You need to go out west and hunt. I mean, it's that simple. Yeah. You need to figure out. I mean, if I tell you everything to do, you're missing part of it. I'll help you out. I'll help you a little, but like if I do everything for you, you're really missing part of the experience. And that, I mean, that's just part of it's figuring out where to hunt, right? You got to, who all do you talk to? And I mean, again, I'll help people some, but in the end, really, you just need to head west and go hunting. And it is getting more and more limited. But with today's technology, there's not much you can't figure out with Google, right? What units, how to put in, where to put in, how many points it takes. I mean, you can figure it out if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. And get out. I had a buddy I met in Idaho. I was guiding for a guy over there on elk hunt. And I didn't get to guide this guy. His name's Trip Myrick. He's from North Carolina. And we hit it off, and like, I was like, you're a stick bow guy. Like, he was shooting a compound at the time. I was like, you're a stick bow guy. You just don't know it yet. And we really kept in contact, and he's been a great friend of mine. And he took his kid, they were going to Colorado elk hunting, and he took his kid to like the mountains in northern North Carolina, and like did a 3-day backpacking trip. And like they would do all this like test stuff. Like they would get a tent and go sleep outside with it. And like, that is so important. Like the first rainstorm that you have shouldn't be at 11,000 feet in Colorado in your tent. Like, don't find out that your sleeping pad is, not quite thick enough or not comfortable enough on night one of a 12-day mule deer hunt or a 4-day mule deer hunt. Like, yeah, it's important to get out there and test your gear. And like you said, it's there's all kind of reviews and stuff, but man, I mean, I know all kinds of people that love their sleeping pad that's completely different than everybody else's sleeping pad, because everybody needs something a little bit different. Where you sleep on your belly, your back, if you weigh 160 pounds or 240 pounds.
Yeah, no, and so, I mean,
yeah, that's it.
Part of that too is, and I've done this a long time, so I've learned a lot. Like, I'm bored as shit right now, so setting the tent up in general is something you probably want to do in your driveway, so you know how to do it before you go out. Check that your air pads aren't leaking. Like, there's a lot of stuff that, man, I don't know how many clients roll out their tent for the first time, like open it up. I'm like, did you just buy that? I'm like, yeah. It's like, didn't put it together. And it's like, I guess you just figured I'd help you, but like, know your gear, you know what I mean? And you can know that from the garage, right? Work on that stuff, figuring it out. And anyway, it's just all kind of part of the experience. And, luckily for me and you and like, I get geeked out on that, like I like going through my pack list. I like going through my gear early, it helps for the winter boredom. Just kind of figuring it out. And I mean, as funny as it is, I do these pack dumps or whatever, but it's like, I'm like, I got to do a pack dump, and then next thing you know, I'm all excited about loading my pack up because I'm bored as shit anyway. So
That's how I get. My ADD kicks in 100 fold. I'll be messing around my reloading room and I'll find this, pack of Band-Aids, and I'll remember like, oh, I used my Luco tape out of my first aid kit and it's been bear season. So then like I get my pack out to get my first aid kit out, and then I'm looking at this, looking at that, and all of a sudden it's just strung out all over the living room. And yeah, like I said, it's just another thing that gets you on the mountain when you can't get on the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good way to look at it for sure. But, yeah, man, we're over an hour here. I don't want to keep you up all night, but, yeah, I do want to say, like, there's very few, and Colton and I did not start off our relationship well. We basically were going to beat the shit out of each other. So it's always nice when that kind of shakes out in the long run, but there's very few people that I know I can call and I'll take them anywhere in the world, or vice versa. But like, you're one of them, dude. And I mean, as I say that, like, I would never hesitate to call and go anywhere with you. And you don't get the credit probably you deserve, mostly because you shoot a stick bow in a small fucking community, but you don't get the credit you deserve. So dude, it's been a pleasure hunting with you and get to know you. And I look forward to hunting with you, hunting with you more. It was fun.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And I feel the same about you. I feel like, you're always welcome to my hunting camp. And I feel like we could, get along in the mountain. Not a lot of people get along with me when we're hunting, but, but yeah, man, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here, and it was a good time.
Yeah, no, it's always
get off track. You're really good at rounding me. You're reining me back in when I get off track.
Yeah, no, I mean, whatever. It's always good to shoot shit with somebody that knows what they're doing, and I mean, it's good to get off track sometimes. But hopefully, you'll be able to come out here, do some bear hunting, and backpack in. I by that time, we're both going to be stir crazy, and Colton's one guy is gonna, hopefully, if he's able to, one of the dudes that's going to help out on the backpacking clinics that we're going to do where we backpack in. Colton's a hell of a fisherman as well, so that's kind of an added bonus. And so, that'll be something that's nice having you along on some of those different trips, and again on the fishing side as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, dude. I appreciate you coming on, and yeah, I can't wait for you to get out here or go fishing or shoot something or whatever. We go to that tournament again up in Cody or something, some damn thing.
For sure, man. I'm looking forward to it too.
Cool. All right, dude. I appreciate it. Take it easy.
All right, see you, buddy.